Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Caring for Caregivers Conversation. I'm Marguerite Ro. I'm the State Director for AARP Washington, and I'm very pleased today to have Jeff Ketchel. Jeff, nice.
Hello.
Glad you were here. Jeff is one of our volunteers. He's on our executive council, and importantly, he's also a Gen X caregiver. And so today we're going to be talking about Gen X caregiving. But first, Jeff, I'd love to have you introduce yourself.
Well, thank you, Marguerite, and thanks for having me on the show today. I've lived in Washington State my entire life, met my wife here. I grew up in West Seattle, and my career has taken me to places such as Moses Lake and Everett and Seattle, and we now live in Spokane. And I went to school in Ellensburg, and I spent some time going to school in Bothell as well. And so kind of had a tour of the entire state.
Wow.
My wife is a nurse practitioner, and we have 3 lovely children, Harrison, Opal, and Ruby, and they're all school-aged, and the oldest isn't even driving yet. So they're a lot of work, but just a great blessing to us.
You have fun times to come, that's for sure.
We do. And when I have some free time, which is rare, but I do like sports, big Seahawks fan, Mariners fan, and now a Kraken fan. And I've also been big into the Olympics, and I've been lucky enough to attend 9 Olympic Games.
And I think I heard something about you being an actor. Is that correct?
I used to do a lot of community acting back before grad school and kids and things like that. And the UPAC theater group in Ballard was a lot of fun for me, doing things like Arsenic and Old Lace and You Can't Take It With Me. Just the lowest level of community theater where nobody gets paid. It's all volunteer, but a lot of great fun.
Well, I am so excited to have you as a volunteer. I wonder if you would tell people a little bit about why you decided to be a volunteer for AARP.
Sure. So I turned 50 a couple of years ago, and Generation X is getting to that age. We see retirement on our horizon now. It's not around the corner anymore. And I think that's a lot of interest to us. We're often that forgotten generation, the baby boomers and the millennials. And how many times do you see somebody on the news talk about the different generations, and we happen to be left off the list. But we were the first ones to experience home computers and the internet. We're often very independent and casual, but cynical too. And we're living in a time where the idea of the pension is drying up, and there's a lot of people who are Generation X that just don't have that reliability of a pension. Mm-hmm. A lot of Generation X aren't planning as well for retirement, and to be able to have conversations like that and talk about policies both at the state and federal level and things like that to really make sure that all of us in this age group are ready for when that happens. But on top of that, a lot of us are also caregivers, doubly, both for our children and for our aging parents. And so how can we both educate and advocate around those areas to make sure we're all getting the information and help that we need?
And so is that what drew you to AARP, is some of our work on caregiving? And I think from what you've shared with me, you're actually part of that sandwich generation, right?
Yes. Sub sandwich, corned beef sandwich, whatever you want to call it. We are definitely smack dab in the sandwich generation, and but I understand that our experiences are not unique. We're not alone, and there's a lot of other people in our age group that are experiencing the same things.
Right. And for folks who don't know, being in the sandwich generation means that we're not only caring for our kids, but we're also caring for our older adult loved ones.
Yes, and so early on, when our son Harrison was born, my mother-in-law Beverly we had said, "Hey, Emily wants to go back to work. I'm already working outside the home. Would you mind coming and staying with us for a while and helping out?" And she was single and said, "Sure, happy to do that. Happy to spend some time with my new grandson and to help out my youngest daughter." And so she moved in, and so over the course of the years, she came and went a couple of times, and it was great help. She was born on a farm in Republic, Washington. She's just a very hardworking woman who likes to help out and do things, and so it was a great time to have her in our home. But
I have to stop and ask, though, where is Republic, Washington?
Ferry County up in...
Ferry County, okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, so Republic's the only incorporated city in Ferry County.
Oh, interesting. Very interesting.
There you go. About 3 years ago, my wife's like, hey, let's move to Spokane. It's where she's from. She has family here, and she wanted to be able to spend time with her mom and dad. And her mom and dad needed some help. And so we moved here. It was in the middle of the pandemic, and we were able to connect as best we could with the two of them. And during that time, her dad did pass away. So we were very grateful that us and the kids were able to spend some time with him. But then her mom needed more and more help, and she was living in a senior apartment house. But she really enjoyed that independent living, even though we took her shopping and we helped out with a lot of things in her apartment there. But then the doctor gave us the news that she couldn't live alone anymore. Between the dementia and the congestive heart failure, her life expectancy was not great if she continued to live on her own. And so once again, we welcomed into her home, but this time the roles were reversed. She wasn't there to help us with our kids. She was there to be helped by us. And so we were lucky enough to have a big house. We didn't mean to get a big house. The housing market was just so tight in Spokane. It was like the only one we could find. And so my wife and I, over the past 20 years, have gotten a little bit handy, and we built a room for her in the basement that has its own bathroom. It's not the gorgeous room in the world. We put up some drywall, put down a rug on the cement, put in a heater, put in some lights and bed and everything, and she moved in, and she loves her space. She definitely spends time in other parts of the house, especially hanging out with the kids. But when she wants to have alone time, she definitely has her retreat. And so my wife, as a nurse practitioner, and me working in public health, we're able to help care for her. I work out of the house, so I'm there during the day. Make her breakfast, make her lunch, and then when my wife gets home, she takes over. But it's a lot of work.
Yeah, I think being able to be close to family is really important for our. So I can tell you that my parents live nearby. They live in Federal Way, and in fact, part of the initiative for me to move here was so that my daughter could get to know her grandparents. And frankly, I also needed help as a single parent. And I think it's just really improved all of our lives to be close together. And it's great because now my daughter is a little bit older than your children. And she's able to help with my parents with technology and spending time with grandma and grandpa, and she's taken trips with them. And I know that's helped them continue to thrive, as I imagine your mother-in-law has as well, has enjoyed being near her grandchildren.
Yes, I mean, the two older kids definitely bonded with her while she was there helping care for them. When the youngest was born, they only spent time together as a little baby. And so she's now 8, Ruby, and she absolutely loves having a live-in playmate in the house. So when she gets home from school and Emily and I are still doing our work, Gigi's more than happy to sit down and watch a cartoon with her, hear about her day, have a snack with her, and they just have a great relationship. And a lot of times you see, where's Ruby? Oh, Ruby must be downstairs hanging out with Gigi.
So you told me that you're working, your wife is working, she's a nurse practitioner. I know you're in public health. What have you found surprising being a family caregiver and going through this journey with your mother-in-law?
It's complicated. And so here my wife really understands the healthcare system. Here I understand the broader health and health insurance and things like that. But it's not the simplest thing to do. And I mean, just as an aside, as I've joined AARP with the interest that I mentioned earlier, but I quickly learned that AARP is a nice clearinghouse of information. And so the website, and there's phone numbers you can call and things like that to kind of say, where do I find this or where do I find that? Because sometimes it can be really complicated. And so because of everything going on, Emily and I decided that we wanted to bring a caregiver into our home part-time. And just the effort it takes to get that. So my mother-in-law has Medicaid, and we've applied for help there. But the first appointment we could get for an evaluation is about 4 months away. And so we're going to have to wait until then or pay for it out of pocket. And it was really surprising to learn that a caregiver for your home is about $40 an hour in Spokane.
It's very pricey.
Yes.
Very hard to pay for that care and to figure that out. And in fact, that is why we do some of the work that we're doing. In fact, if the Washington Cares program, the Washington Cares Fund, the WA Cares Fund, as we have been calling it, is a long-term care benefit for Washingtonians that is just about to kick off. And, some of that is to buy time, in fact, as we figure out what those next steps are. So, as you're saying, at $40 an hour, it becomes really, really pricey very, very quickly.
It does. And we sat down and did the math and thought, well, we could ask some of her siblings for some help, but it just didn't pencil out. But one thing we're fortunate is school is ending for the year. We're heading into the summer, and the two older kids, like with your daughter, are helpful. I mean, they're 12 and 14, and they can watch out for her. They help get her medications and make her something to eat and make sure that her needs are taken care of. And so we have just 3 wonderful kids that all get to play different roles in helping care for Gigi.
So, Jeff, as a public health practitioner, can you talk a little bit about what public health is doing to help us as we get older to age well and age healthily?
Yes. So historically, public health hasn't done much with regards to care for elders. We've certainly done a lot to focus on babies and newborns and children and things like that. But as Washington is getting older and more Washingtonians are of retirement age, and with all the advances in medicine and healthcare and things like that, how can we make sure not only people are living long lives, but healthy lives? Because as long as they're healthy, free from things like Alzheimer's and arthritis and diabetes and other chronic conditions, they're going to be able to live more independently and obviously be happier and enjoy their retirement years, but also cost less to the system. And there's a huge money savings path. And that's the great thing about public health and why I've enjoyed my career is when you invest in prevention, the return is many times over. And so I would love to see our system invest in care for our elderly to help let them age in place and to encourage, incentivize family members to care for them instead of putting them into a retirement home or something like that.
Well, chronic disease, fall prevention,
another great one,
is a big issue.
Yes.
I was in the emergency room last night with a friend, and as I was walking, through the emergency room, there were certainly people there. There were a lot of older people there, and one gentleman who I could hear who had fallen and had a big gash on his head, and
oh no,
but it is one of those things that we haven't spent quite enough time, I think, and effort to help people know how to keep their homes or to make their homes safe, right? Which are things that we can certainly do. Are there other things that you think we should do?
Keep homes safe, access to services. Ways for people to be mobile. Another one that Emily and I have been asking around for, but doesn't really exist, is adult daycare. Is there a place, if I'm going out of town and Emily's going to have a long day at work, could we take her just for the day? Not overnight, but just for the day, where she's going to be cared for, somebody's going to feed her, give her medications, she's going to be able to socialize with some peers, and then at the end of the day, we'll go and pick her up. But those are few and far between, and a lot of times they're cost prohibitive.
So if you were, so I know that at least when I'm in conversations with my friends, we're talking a lot about caring for parents and everything. As you've entered into this family care, as you being a family caregiver, you have some words of advice that you would give to somebody?
Yeah, I have a story to tell.
Okay.
So growing up in West Seattle, my dad was from New York. My mother grew up in Los Angeles. And I never knew my dad's parents, but I knew my mom's mother and stepfather. And so they were my grandma and grandpa. That's all I knew. My step-grandfather, who was my grandfather really, passed away when I was 18. And my grandmother lived for another 13 years after that. And 12 of those 13 years, she stayed in Los Angeles. And we were up in Seattle. And I didn't really see her very much. A lot of family dynamic there. But in her final year of life, my mom moved her up to Seattle to be close. So my mom could take better care of her. And during that year, one night a week, I would go spend the evening with my grandmother. We'd listen to music, we'd have conversations, we'd catch up on everything that has happened. I'd hear about her short-term memory wasn't so great, but her long-term memory was solid, about her growing up in Ohio, how she made it out to Los Angeles, and I loved hearing all these stories. I found she was born in 1904, I found some songs from the 1920s that I would play for her, and she would recognize some of them. And it was just a wonderful time that year. And she passed away in February, on Valentine's Day, 2003. And I realized that when I had kids, that I didn't want them to just experience their grandparents in their final year of life like I did. How can we assure that they have those connections and understand both the good and the bad, the struggles and the joys of being close. And so having Beverly, or as we affectionately call her, Gigi, come stay with us all these years has really been a blessing to us. And so really enjoy those moments, because there will be a day, maybe tomorrow, maybe 5 years from now, that she'll be gone. And that for them to have these memories is going to be great.
Thank you for sharing that story.
Yes. Yeah. No, I miss my grandma Marjorie. I miss my grandpa Ross. They're wonderful people.
It is about keeping the stories alive and making the connections. I think in an earlier conversation today, I heard, if just talking about the value of older people and the experiences that they've had. And I certainly know that for myself, I hope that I get to be valued in that same way when I'm older. So I think the experience you're giving your children is really amazing.
Well, Gigi, the farmer's daughter, we have 5 chickens at our house, and she knows a lot about chickens. And that's still in her computer there, and she's able to give us some great advice about the feeding and caring of chickens. And so yes, amongst other things. And she makes great cookies. She used to make great cookies. She doesn't bake anymore, but she used to love to make me cookies.
I think we're both Gen X. We're in that Gen X family caregiver situation.
Yep.
I will just say that I hope more of our friends and our peers get to know that AARP has those resources and has information that will help you along that journey. And here in Washington, we've put together a website, and it's www.aarp.org/caregiverswa or caregiverswa. And you can find the information on caregiving, and we will help provide you with the tools and resources and connections to help along that journey, no matter what stage you are at. And I will just say, Jeff, I so appreciate what you're giving to AARP. I so appreciate what you're giving to the state of Washington as being in the public sector as one of our public health leaders. And so really appreciate your time today here.
Thank you, Marguerite, and thanks for having me here to tell my story and encourage my peers to volunteer somewhere, not anywhere, because we have that moxie You know, I got my Doc Martens on right now. You probably can't see them, but we got that Doc Marten Moxie, growing up on Nirvana and Pearl Jam, to really make a difference. And
absolutely,
let's do it.
Not being the slacker generation. We'll be renamed something else. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us, everybody. And we look forward to the next podcast.
Cheers.
Thanks.